Okay, let's just dive right in. We're going to talk about something that we all do, a habit that is so incredibly common, but man, can it be one of the most painful things we put ourselves through. We're talking about the comparison trap.
This quote, it really just says it all, doesn't it? It's a feeling we all know so well, but how often do we actually stop and ask, why? Why do I do this? And more importantly, how do we get out of that cycle?
You know exactly what this feels like. You're just scrolling through your feed, minding your own business, and then bam, you see it. A friend gets a promotion, someone you know is on this picture-perfect vacation, another person gets engaged, and just like that, in a split second, your own life, which felt totally fine moments ago, suddenly feels lacking. Well, that feeling, it has a name. Actually, it has a couple of names. So let's put a label on this whole experience, because once we can name it, we can start to understand it. So first up, we've got something called personal relative deprivation, or PRD for short. Now, this isn't just simple jealousy. Oh no, this is that specific gut punch feeling that you aren't getting what you deserve, especially when you see someone else getting it. It's this nasty cocktail of resentment and just deep, deep dissatisfaction.
And then there's this piece of the puzzle, social comparison rumination. This is the mental hamster wheel that just keeps the pain going. It's when you can't stop thinking about that one comparison. You just replay it, you analyze it, you brood over it for hours, maybe even days, long after you've scrolled past the photo.
And this is where the modern world really throws a wrench in the works. Social media is basically like pouring gasoline on this fire. It gives us a 24/7, non-stop stream of perfectly curated highlight reels, which just multiplies our chances for both PRD and that awful rumination. It can create this constant state of feeling like you're behind.
So why? Why are our brains so obsessed with comparing ourselves to others? Well, here's the thing. It's not a personal failing. It's not a flaw in your character. It turns out there's some really deep psychological and even evolutionary reasons for it. So let's dig in and uncover the 4 hidden roots of this habit. We're going to walk through each one of these, step by step. And trust me, understanding where this all comes from, that's the first and honestly the most crucial step to taking your power back from the comparison trap.
Okay, so the first route is fascinating. Think about it. You don't compare yourself to just anyone, right? You compare yourself to people who have something that, deep down, you secretly crave. So in this light, comparison isn't the enemy. It's more like a mirror. It's just reflecting your own unspoken desires back at you.
The second route, it's about confusion. See, if you don't have a really strong sense of your own values, of what a meaningful life looks like for you, your brain is naturally going to look elsewhere for a template. You end up using other people's lives as a blueprint for your own, and that just leaves you feeling exhausted and frankly, inauthentic.
Now this one is all about biology. Your brain is literally running on ancient software. I mean, think about it. Thousands of years ago, your social standing in the tribe meant everything. It determined if you got food, protection, a mate. So your brain is still wired to constantly scan for threats to your social status. When a colleague gets a promotion, your ancient survival brain can actually interpret that as a threat, which triggers a very real fear response.
And finally, we have the most personal root of all. Sometimes seeing someone else's success hurts, and it's not because you're a jealous person, it's because it reactivates old wounds. It can stir up every time in your past you felt overlooked or ignored or just not good enough. This is when comparison feels so heavy, because it's not really about them at all. It's about a part of you that's still asking to be healed.
Okay, so now that we get the why, how do we actually start to deal with it? Well, the solution begins not by trying to fight our thoughts, but by changing our emotional state first. So let's shift gears and see how we can build what's called the self-compassion mindset.
Self-compassion is basically the antidote to that harsh self-judgment that comparison loves to feed on. It's really simple, at its core. It's about shifting your internal voice from being a harsh critic to being a supportive friend. That's it.
So this breaks down into 3 core parts. First, you've got self-kindness versus self-judgment. This is about being warm and understanding with yourself when you're struggling, instead of, being your own worst enemy. Second, there's common humanity versus isolation. This is the crucial reminder that you are not alone in this. These feelings are part of being human. And third, there's mindfulness versus over-identification. This is all about learning to observe your painful feelings with a little bit of space, rather than letting them totally consume you.
And a huge piece of this whole thing is self-forgiveness. It's about letting go of that self-loathing that comes with feeling like you're not enough.
It's a conscious choice to stop punishing yourself for what you think are your flaws and just accept yourself right here, right now.
All right, now let's pair that emotional shift with some really practical, evidence-based tools from the world of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. Think of this as your personal toolkit for actively changing those sticky thought patterns.
The star player here is a technique called cognitive restructuring. This is all about becoming a detective of your own thoughts. You learn how to spot those negative, distorted thoughts that comparison creates, and then you actively challenge them and replace them with a more balanced, realistic perspective.
Now look at this. This shows you exactly how it works in real time. You catch that big all-or-nothing thought, everyone has a perfect life. Then you actively reframe it with a more rational truth. I'm only seeing their highlight reel. I'm not seeing their struggles. That simple shift can literally break the emotional spiral.
Another really powerful tool from this toolkit is mindfulness. This helps you create some breathing room between you and your thoughts. You learn to just observe the comparative thought, notice it without judging it, and see it for what it is. Just a thought, not a fact, not an absolute truth. This is what keeps you from getting all tangled up in that rumination loop.
So look, if you take only one thing away from all this, please let it be this. The goal isn't to wrestle comparison into submission and beat it. The goal is to understand it, to understand where it's coming from, whether that's a desire, some confusion, an old fear, or an old wound. Because the moment you see the root, that's the moment you take your power back.
And I'll just leave you with this final question to think about. What would change? What would your life feel like if the only person you ever measured yourself against was the person you were yesterday? Just let that sink in.